Amma stepped into her house and immediately felt the familiar comfort of home. The warm evening air brushed against her face as she closed the front door behind her. The house smelled faintly of soap and freshly cooked food. Her eyes scanned the rooms, noting how everything was in its place. The floors gleamed as if someone had polished them carefully, the cushions were neatly arranged and the kitchen counters were spotless. Amma's heart relaxed a little. After a long day at work, seeing her house tidy gave her a sense of peace. "Good evening, Madam Amma," Binta said, bowing slightly as she stood near the doorway of the living room. Her smile was bright, friendly and familiar. Amma returned the smile, feeling the warmth of trust she had always placed in her maid. Binta had worked for her family for almost 3 years now, and Amma had always depended on her for help, companionship and honesty. She had never doubted Binta's loyalty, and that trust was something Amma held dearly. "Good evening, Binta," Amma replied, taking off her coat and placing it on the hook near the door. "How was your day?" she asked casually. "Peaceful, madam. I prepared dinner and tidied the house," Binta answered smoothly, her voice calm and measured. She moved gracefully across the room, picking up a small basket of laundry and placing it in its spot. There was a quiet rhythm in her movements, a precision that Amma had always admired. She wondered briefly how Binta managed to keep the house in perfect order while also completing many small errands, but she never questioned it. Amma walked into the living room and set her bag on the sofa. She glanced around again and for a moment something felt slightly off. A drawer in the side cabinet was open, a single cup was tilted on the shelf, and the newspapers on the table were slightly askew. Nothing was dramatically wrong, and yet her eyes noticed the small irregularities. She frowned slightly, wondering if she had left them that way in the morning. But the thought faded quickly. She was tired and perhaps her mind was playing tricks on her. "I must be imagining things," Amma murmured to herself as she walked toward the kitchen. Binta was already there, preparing tea and arranging the plates for dinner. The kettle whistled softly on the stove, and the aroma of freshly baked bread filled the air. Amma felt a small sense of comfort wash over her, as if the familiar sights and smells could chase away any worry or doubt. She took a seat at the dining table and watched Binta work quietly. There was a natural rhythm in her movements, a practiced grace that made everything seem effortless. Binta sliced bread carefully, placed plates evenly, and made sure the silverware was arranged neatly. Amma admired the dedication and thoughtfulness, and for a moment she forgot the small irregularities she had noticed earlier. As they sat down for tea, Amma tried to relax completely, leaning back in her chair and sipping slowly. Binta poured the tea gently, her hands steady and sure. "You had a long day, Madam Amma? Would you like some toast with your tea?" Binta asked, smiling warmly. "Yes, please," Amma replied. She felt grateful for the small gestures, the care and attention to detail. Binta had always been thoughtful, and Amma knew she could count on her for anything. The trust between them felt solid, like a foundation that could withstand any challenge. After a few minutes of quiet conversation, Amma's thoughts wandered back to the small irregularities she had noticed. She tried to dismiss them again, telling herself she was overthinking. Maybe she had left the drawer open in the morning when she was cleaning, or perhaps she had moved the cup and forgotten. The newspapers might have shifted when she walked past. Small things happened in any home and there was no reason to overthink them. Still, the feeling lingered. There was a faint sense of unease that Amma could not completely shake. She watched Binta quietly, noting how attentive and polite she was. Every movement was precise, every word measured, and every action seemed deliberate. Amma knew her maid well enough to trust her completely, yet a small part of her mind wondered if she had been missing something all this time. The evening continued peacefully. Amma finished her tea and set the cup down, feeling the warmth of the house settle around her. She moved to the living room and picked up a book from the table. Binta followed quietly, placing a small lamp nearby so that Amma could read comfortably. "Thank you, Binta," Amma said softly, appreciating the care and thoughtfulness. "You are welcome, madam," Binta replied with a smile, her eyes shining with a calm confidence. There was a quiet strength in her presence, a stability that Amma had always relied upon. She felt safe and reassured. Yet the small feeling of unease did not completely disappear. Amma told herself that it was just fatigue, the result of a long day at work and the stress that came with it. As she read, Amma noticed a small movement in the corner of her eye. She glanced briefly toward the side cabinet where the drawer had been slightly open. It was now fully closed, perfectly aligned with the cabinet door. She blinked, wondering if she had imagined the earlier scene. Perhaps she had been tired, or perhaps she had simply not noticed it before. The house was neat, orderly, and calm. Everything seemed normal. Still, The small seed of curiosity had been planted in her mind. She watched Binta as she moved around the room, arranging a few papers and straightening the cushions. The maid's movements were deliberate and careful, precise as always. Amma admired the efficiency and thoughtfulness, but a small, quiet part of her began to wonder what Binta might be doing when Amma was not looking, what small secrets might exist behind the polished exterior. Amma shook her head gently, dismissing the thought. "I am being silly," she whispered to herself. She had always trusted Binta completely, and she knew in her heart that her maid had never given her a reason to doubt her loyalty or honesty. The small irregularities were likely nothing, just simple mistakes or her own fatigue affecting her perception. By the time night had fully settled, Amma finished her book and placed it on the table. The house was quiet, and the moonlight streamed through the windows, casting a soft glow across the room. She took a deep breath, feeling the comfort of her home, the presence of Binta nearby, and the sense of order and calm that surrounded her. Binta moved quietly to her room to prepare for the night, her presence both reassuring and mysterious in the dim light. Amma watched her for a moment, feeling the warmth of gratitude and trust toward her maid. She knew that she was fortunate to have someone so dedicated and loyal in her home. Yet the small seed of curiosity remained, hidden deep in her mind, a faint reminder that perhaps not everything was as it seemed. Amma turned off the lamp beside her chair and stood up, stretching gently. She glanced around the room one last time, seeing everything in its place. The cup was set neatly on the table, the cushions aligned perfectly, and the drawer remained closed. Everything seemed calm, perfect, and orderly. She smiled softly, feeling the comfort of her home wrap around her like a warm blanket. Tomorrow will be another busy day, Amma thought as she walked to her bedroom. I will deal with work, friends, and routines. Everything will be fine. She lay down on her bed, pulling the covers up around her, and closed her eyes. Over the next few days, Amma returned home from work with a growing awareness that something in the house was slightly different, though she could not put her finger on it. The house remained clean, orderly, and neat as it always had been, but tiny changes began to catch her attention. A note she had left on the table for a friend was missing. A small bracelet she had placed on the dresser was gone. Even some coins she kept in a jar for emergencies were not there. It was not that these things were very valuable, but the fact that they had disappeared made Amma pause and think. She watched Binta quietly as the maid went about her usual tasks. Binta moved gracefully around the house, arranging cushions, polishing the furniture, and sweeping the floors. She always greeted Amma with a warm smile and kind words. Yet, Amma noticed that her eyes were sometimes distracted, and she moved with a careful attention to detail that seemed unusually intense. Amma could not tell if it was a sign of diligence or if something else was happening. She tried to remind herself that she had always trusted Binta, who had been honest and loyal for many years. One evening, Amma approached Binta while the maid was washing dishes. "Binta," she said gently, "I noticed that a few things are missing from the house. A note, a small bracelet, and even some coins from the jar. Do you know anything about them?" Binta looked up from the sink, her expression calm and polite. She wiped her hands on a clean towel and smiled. "Madam Amma, everything is fine. I have not taken anything. Maybe you misplaced them while busy with work." Her voice was steady, soothing, and confident. Amma could see no sign of dishonesty in her face. The warmth of her smile made it difficult for Amma to accuse her of anything, even though her mind was clouded with questions. Amma nodded slowly, trying to convince herself. "Perhaps you are right," she said softly. "I may have misplaced them." She wanted to believe that, to dismiss the nagging feeling of doubt, but it lingered quietly at the back of her mind. She wondered if Binta might be hiding something, but the thought felt wrong. After all, Binta had never given her reason to distrust her. The next morning, Amma awoke early and walked through her home before leaving for work. Everything appeared in place, but she still noticed small, subtle differences. A cushion that had been flat the night before was now perfectly fluffed. A small cup on the shelf had shifted slightly. Even the newspapers on the table had been rearranged. Amma shook her head. Perhaps she was overthinking again, she told herself. Perhaps she simply did not notice these details before. At work, Amma could not shake the feeling of curiosity mixed with concern. She replayed the days in her mind, thinking of the missing items and the strange little changes around the house. Was it carelessness? Was it forgetfulness on her part? Or was there something more? She tried to focus on her tasks, but the thought lingered like a soft shadow at the edge of her awareness. That evening she returned home to see Binta in the kitchen, humming quietly while preparing dinner. Amma paused by the doorway, watching her maid move efficiently from counter to stove, chopping vegetables and stirring a pot of soup. The sight was comforting yet slightly unnerving. Binta's precision was flawless, almost mechanical. Amma remembered the missing items again, and a quiet twinge of doubt settled in her chest. "Binta," Amma said gently as she entered the room, "have you noticed anything unusual in the house? Items that might be misplaced or lost?" Binta looked up with a serene expression. She shook her head and smiled. "No, Madam Amma. Everything is as it should be. Perhaps it is just your imagination. You have been very busy and sometimes things move slightly without noticing." Her words were calm, kind, and convincing. Amma felt a mixture of relief and unease. She wanted to trust her maid completely and she knew she should, but the feeling of doubt was persistent, like a small whisper she could not ignore. After dinner, Amma moved to the living room and began tidying up the few items she had left around. The missing bracelet, coins, and note returned to her mind repeatedly. She wondered if she should investigate further or confront Binta. But she realized that she had no real evidence, only suspicion and curiosity. The thought of doubting someone she had trusted for years made her uneasy. She decided to hold back, to watch quietly and see if anything else occurred. The following day, Amma noticed another small change. A photo frame on the shelf, which she had placed carefully the night before, was now slightly tilted. The glass was clean and shiny, but the alignment was off. Amma gently straightened it and stepped back, feeling her curiosity grow. She began paying closer attention to Binta's movements, observing her actions more closely than ever before. Binta continued her work with her usual calm and cheerful demeanor, seemingly unaware that Amma was noticing every little gesture. Amma spent the next few days quietly observing. She noticed small patterns. Binta would often disappear briefly while Amma was occupied, sometimes carrying a small bag or package. Amma wondered where she went and what she did, but every time she asked, Binta reassured her with a polite smile and simple words. "Everything is fine, Madam Amma. Do not worry." The tone was always calm, warm, and confident. Amma felt the struggle within herself, between the trust she had in her maid and the small curiosity that had been growing each day. One evening, Amma found herself standing in the living room, holding a cup she had poured tea into earlier. Binta was in the kitchen arranging the dishes, humming softly. Amma noticed a small note tucked under a cushion. She picked it up and read it quietly. The note contained nothing alarming, just a list of names and a few small instructions, but Amma's mind raced. Who were these people? Why did Binta have this note? Her thoughts swirled with questions, each one bigger than the last. Yet even with the curiosity, she could not bring herself to accuse Binta. Amma decided to speak softly and gently. "Binta," she said, "sometimes I notice small things missing or moved. Can you help me understand what is happening?" Binta looked at her, her expression calm and gentle. She shook her head slightly and smiled. "Madam Amma, everything is fine. You may be noticing small things that move naturally. Nothing has been taken. You have always trusted me and I have always cared for this house and you. Please do not worry unnecessarily." Amma nodded slowly, wanting to believe her maid completely. Binta's calm words, her gentle tone, and her warm smile were reassuring. Yet the curiosity and tiny doubts continued to linger in Amma's mind. She realized that she was beginning to notice life in new ways, paying attention to small details she had ignored before. The missing items and notes had awakened a curiosity that she could not yet explain. Over the next few days, Amma carefully watched and noted the small changes herself. Coins from the jar disappeared only to reappear later. Small packages Binta carried seemed to vanish briefly and then return. Notes Amma thought were missing were sometimes found in drawers she did not remember opening. It became clear to Amma that Binta was not careless, but deliberate in her actions. A gentle warmth and a quiet admiration began to replace Amma's doubt. She started to feel that perhaps Binta was doing something kind, something secret, and not anything harmful. Amma had just finished her work for the day when she bumped into her neighbor, Saad, near the small market on the edge of their street. Saad waved at her with a bright smile, carrying a basket filled with fruits. "Good evening, Amma," she said cheerfully. "How was your day?" "It was fine, thank you," Amma replied, returning the smile. She had known Saad for many years, and they often shared small conversations when they met. Saad was friendly, talkative, and always seemed to know a little about everyone in the neighborhood. Saad paused for a moment and leaned in slightly, lowering her voice. "Amma, I saw something interesting today. I hope you don't mind me mentioning it." Amma tilted her head, curious. "Oh, what is it?" Saad smiled and spoke carefully. "I saw Binta at the market. She was quietly giving some items to the children there. Food, little things, and even some coins. She didn't want anyone to notice. I thought it was very kind of her, but I was surprised because she never told anyone, not even you. Amma felt her eyes widen. She blinked, trying to process what Saad had just said. Binta, her polite, quiet maid, giving things to children secretly? It was something Amma had never imagined. She felt a mix of surprise, curiosity, and a little disbelief. Could her maid really be doing such a kind thing without ever mentioning it? Binta, Amma asked softly. Giving things to children? She could hardly believe it. Did you see this clearly? Yes, Saad replied with a nod. She was very careful, making sure no one else noticed. I didn't interfere, but I couldn't help but notice her kindness. She smiled at the children, handed them small gifts, and walked away quietly as if nothing had happened. Amma's mind raced. The small missing items she had noticed over the past week, the coins, notes, and other little things, suddenly began to make sense. Perhaps Binta had been doing something good all along. Perhaps the quiet curiosity that had grown inside her was about something meaningful, not suspicious. That evening, Amma returned home slowly, her mind filled with questions. She entered the house and noticed Binta humming softly while arranging a few books on the living room shelf. Everything looked peaceful and orderly, just as it always had. Amma's heart felt a little lighter knowing that her maid's actions might have been kind and not mysterious for negative reasons. She decided to observe Binta more closely. Perhaps today she could understand the true purpose behind her maid's secretive actions. Amma watched quietly as Binta moved from the living room to the kitchen, carrying a small basket. Her movements were gentle, careful, and precise. The humming continued softly in the background. There was a sense of grace in every motion, and Amma began to notice the small things Binta did that made the house not just clean, but warm and welcoming. Amma followed Binta's actions quietly over the next few days. She noticed that the coins she had thought missing were sometimes carefully taken and later returned. Small notes she believed had vanished were moved from one place to another, and packages she hadn't expected to find were placed neatly in drawers. It became clear that Binta's behavior was deliberate and thoughtful. One afternoon, Amma decided to speak gently to herself as she watched her maid. Perhaps Binta has a purpose for all these small movements, she thought. She must be doing something kind, something helpful that I cannot see yet. Her curiosity had shifted from doubt to admiration. Amma realized that Binta's secretive behavior was not about deceit, it was about care, kindness, and attention. That evening, Amma sat quietly in the living room, pretending to read a book, while Binta moved about arranging the tea set. Amma noticed the way Binta handled the cups carefully, making sure none of them clinked together too loudly. She saw the way Binta gently placed each spoon on the saucer, aligned perfectly. It was as if Binta treated each small action with a sense of importance, as if it mattered beyond what Amma could see. Amma remembered Sada's words from the market, and the pieces slowly began to fit together. Perhaps the coins and items that appeared to go missing were gifts for children or small donations to someone in need. Perhaps Binta had been helping quietly without drawing attention. Amma felt a warm admiration growing in her heart for the woman who had worked so diligently in her home and for the community around them. The next day, Amma woke early and walked quietly to the living room. She noticed a small envelope under the table, slightly hidden by the corner of a rug. She picked it up carefully and opened it. Inside was a note with simple instructions and a few coins neatly arranged. It did not seem to be anything alarming, only small gifts and reminders for someone outside. Amma realized that Binta had indeed been preparing small things for others. She smiled softly, feeling proud and grateful for her maid's secret kindness. Amma continued to observe Binta over the next week. Each small action, moving coins, placing items, carrying packages, told a story of generosity and careful thought. Amma began to see that Binta's cheerful demeanor and polite smile were not only signs of her professionalism, but also a reflection of her quiet, thoughtful heart. There was something kind and meaningful hidden behind every gesture, every careful action. One evening, Amma decided to approach Binta gently. "Binta," she said softly as her maid arranged cushions on the sofa, "I noticed something recently. Did you give some items to the children at the market?" Binta looked up, her expression calm but a little surprised. She paused, then nodded slowly. "Yes, Madam Amma. I try to help quietly without anyone noticing. I do not want praise, only to see them happy and safe." Her voice was gentle, sincere, and filled with warmth. Amma felt a wave of admiration for her maid. "I had no idea," Amma said softly. "You have been so kind and thoughtful. I see now that the small changes I noticed in the house were because of your secret acts of kindness. I understand now and I am proud of you, Binta." Binta smiled warmly, a quiet light in her eyes. "Thank you, Madam Amma. I only wish to do good quietly. It is enough for me to know that the children are happy." Amma felt a deep sense of respect and admiration for Binta. She realized that sometimes, the quietest actions were the most important, and the smallest gestures could carry the most meaning. She understood that Binta's work was not about recognition or reward, but about caring for others without expecting anything in return. Over the next few days, Amma began to join Binta in her small acts of kindness. Together they delivered packages, offered small gifts and helped children in need at the market. Amma felt a warmth in her heart she had never experienced before. The curiosity and admiration she felt for Binta transformed into a partnership of care and generosity. One bright afternoon, Amma felt a mixture of curiosity and determination. She had been watching Binta quietly for days, noticing the small items that went missing, the notes that moved, and the packages that appeared and disappeared. Each day the curiosity inside Amma had grown stronger. She wanted to know the truth, not out of suspicion but out of admiration and care. There was something special about her maid, something kind and meaningful behind the polite smile that had always greeted her in the mornings. Amma decided that today she would follow Binta, to see where she went and what she did when Amma was not watching closely. She waited until Binta left the house for a brief errand, pretending to tidy the living room while secretly keeping an eye on her. Binta stepped out of the house gracefully, carrying a small cloth bag, humming softly to herself as she walked down the quiet streets. Amma followed at a safe distance, careful not to be noticed. She kept behind a row of trees and parked cars, moving slowly to maintain a discreet watch over her maid. As they walked further away from the neighborhood, Amma noticed Binta's pace remained steady, calm and purposeful. She did not seem rushed or secretive in a suspicious way. Instead, her actions were measured and deliberate, as if she were heading toward something important. Amma's heart beat faster with anticipation. What could Binta be doing with these small packages, coins and notes? Her curiosity grew stronger with every step. After a few blocks, Binta turned into a small, quiet alley that led to a modest building with peeling paint and a faded sign. Amma's eyes widened as she realized it was a small orphanage. Children's laughter and chatter drifted through the open windows, and small hands waved happily when they saw Binta approach. Amma hid behind a corner, watching in amazement. Binta entered the building quietly but with a warm smile. Amma peeked through a partially open window and saw her maid placing the items she had been carrying on a table. There were packets of food, some neatly folded clothes, and a few coins carefully arranged in a small tin. Binta spoke gently to the children, handing them the items one by one with kindness and patience. The children's eyes lit up as they received the gifts, and their laughter filled the room with a soft, joyful energy. Amma felt a wave of emotions wash over her. Surprise, admiration, and relief mixed together in a warm feeling that made her chest expand with gratitude. She understood now why the small items in her home had gone missing, why the coins disappeared from the jar, and why the notes she thought were lost had been moved. It was all part of Binta's secret acts of kindness, helping children in need quietly and without recognition. Amma realized that her maid had been performing these acts for weeks, perhaps months, without ever telling anyone, not even her. She watched carefully as Binta interacted with the children. There was no sense of showiness or pride in her actions, only sincere care and thoughtfulness. Each gesture, each word, each small action demonstrated her heart for others. Amma felt a deep respect growing inside her. She had always known Binta was loyal and trustworthy, but now she saw the depth of her generosity, the quiet strength and goodness that had always been hidden behind the cheerful smile and polite words. Amma continued observing for a while, noticing how Binta moved through the room with grace and care. She knelt to tie a child's shoelace, handed out food carefully and smiled warmly at each child. She arranged the clothes neatly on a shelf, ensuring that each child had something suitable. Every movement, every decision reflected thoughtfulness, dedication and love. Amma realized that Binta's actions were not simply good deeds. They were lessons in kindness, patience and generosity. Amma felt a small tear run down her cheek as she watched. She was overwhelmed with admiration and gratitude. Here was someone who gave so much without expecting anything in return, someone who quietly changed the lives of children she might never meet again, someone who acted out of pure goodness. Amma understood now that the missing coins, notes and packages had been part of this secret, meaningful mission. For the first time, Amma truly appreciated the depth of Binta's heart. She understood that trust is not just about what is visible, but about recognizing the intentions behind every action. Binta had been trustworthy not only in her duties at home but also in the way she cared for others outside, quietly and sincerely. Amma's mind reflected on the small gestures she had noticed before. A moved note, a missing coin, a package handled carefully. Everything now made sense. Amma realized she had been fortunate to witness this. She quietly admired Binta from her hiding place, noting how naturally her maid moved with love and dedication. She understood that true kindness does not seek attention. Binta did not need anyone to notice her actions. She only wanted to make a difference, and that was enough for her. As Amma continued watching, she also noticed the children's reactions. Their eyes sparkled with joy, their faces lit up with smiles, and their laughter created a warm, magical atmosphere in the room. Amma understood that the happiness of these children was a reflection of Binta's heart. The care she gave, the effort she put into each small act, and the thoughtfulness in every gesture had created an environment of love, safety, and joy. Amma felt a strong sense of inspiration. She realized that she had learned an important lesson, that helping others, even in small ways, creates ripples of happiness and hope. Binta had been teaching this lesson silently, through her actions, without even intending to make Amma notice. Amma now understood that every small thing she had questioned, every coin, note, and package, was a small act of love and care, and that her maid's secret kindness had been shaping lives quietly all along. After some time, Binta gathered the remaining items and prepared to leave. Amma remained hidden but followed her cautiously as she walked back toward their neighborhood. Amma's heart was full of admiration, respect, and a desire to understand more. She wanted to approach Binta, to speak gently about what she had seen, and to share in the quiet joy of her actions. But she waited, giving her maid space, not wanting to interfere with the natural rhythm of her giving. When they returned home, Amma noticed Binta arranging the items she had carried back from the orphanage carefully. There was a calm serenity in her actions, a reflection of the quiet joy she felt inside. Amma realized that Binta's smile and cheerful demeanor were not just for appearances, they were a reflection of her heart, a heart that had given so much without seeking reward. Amma woke the next morning with a new feeling of warmth in her heart. The previous day had changed something inside her. She had discovered Binta's secret kindness, seen the joy she brought to children at the orphanage, and understood the true meaning of the small items that had gone missing from her house. Amma felt a deep sense of gratitude and pride in her maid. She realized that Binta's actions were not only thoughtful and selfless but also a lesson in living with generosity, care, and purpose. That morning, Amma quietly got out of bed, careful not to wake Binta, who was already moving about the house preparing breakfast. The smell of fresh bread and brewed tea filled the kitchen, making Amma smile softly. She watched her maid from the doorway, noticing how naturally Binta moved, arranging the dishes, folding the napkins neatly, and humming a soft tune. Every action was careful and deliberate, yet full of warmth and kindness. Amma decided that today she would join Binta at the orphanage. She wanted to help, to be part of the quiet kindness that had touched so many children's lives, and to learn more from her maid. She dressed quickly, tying her hair neatly, and carried a small bag with a few coins, clothes, and packets of food she had prepared earlier. Her heart felt light, excited, and full of purpose. When she entered the kitchen, Binta looked up and smiled. "Good morning, Madam Amma," she said softly. "Are you ready for today?" Amma returned the smile, her eyes shining. "Yes, Binta. I would like to come with you. I want to help the children and learn from you." Binta's expression softened, and she nodded gently. "I am glad, Madam Amma. It will be good to have you help. The children will be happy to see you." Her voice carried warmth and encouragement, and Amma felt a sense of pride and anticipation grow inside her. Together they walked through the quiet streets of the neighborhood, carrying small bags of food, clothes, and coins. Amma watched Binta carefully, learning the way she moved, the way she handed out the items, and the soft, gentle way she interacted with the children. Binta's demeanor was calm, cheerful, and full of patience. Amma realized that every small gesture, every smile, every carefully arranged package, held meaning far beyond what she had ever imagined. When they arrived at the orphanage, the children greeted them with laughter and excitement. Their eyes lit up as they saw Binta carrying the packages. Amma felt her heart fill with joy at their reactions. She had never seen so much happiness in such simple gestures before. The children's laughter and smiles created a warm, magical atmosphere that made Amma understand the importance of kindness, generosity, and quiet acts of care. Binta moved among the children with a gentle grace, handing out clothes, food, and coins carefully and deliberately. Amma followed her example, giving the items she had brought, observing how the children reacted with joy and gratitude. She realized that small acts of kindness, given without expectation or recognition, could have a profound impact on the lives of others. Amma felt proud to be part of this quiet, meaningful work. As the day continued, Amma noticed the small details that made Binta's actions special. She watched how Binta knelt to tie the shoes of a small boy, handed food to a little girl with a soft smile, and made sure that every child received something suitable and fair. Amma began to understand the depth of her maid's thoughtfulness, the care behind every action, and the love that guided her movements. It was not just about giving items, it was about giving attention, patience, and respect to every child. Amma also saw how the children responded to Binta and herself. They were happy, excited, and comfortable in the presence of these two women who cared for them. Their trust, laughter, and smiles created a sense of warmth that filled the small room and even Amma's heart. She realized that Binta had been creating this environment quietly for weeks, preparing the children's needs with care and thoughtfulness, without anyone noticing. Amma felt admiration and respect growing stronger with every moment. Throughout the day, Amma and Binta worked together, moving between children, handing out packages, and arranging small meals. Amma noticed the children asking questions, some shy, some curious, and Binta answered each one with patience and kindness. Amma tried to do the same, learning from her maid's example. She realized that the smallest actions, done carefully and sincerely, could create the greatest difference in the lives of others. Amma reflected on the past week, remembering how she had noticed missing coins, notes, and packages in her own home. She now understood that those small items had been part of Binta's secret acts of kindness. Each coin, each note, each small gift had found its way to a child who needed it, creating joy, care, and hope. Amma realized that trust, admiration, and understanding were connected to observing actions and learning the purpose behind them. As the afternoon sun streamed through the windows of the orphanage, Amma felt a sense of fulfillment. The children's laughter, the warmth in their eyes, and the gratitude in their smiles filled her heart. She understood now that helping others did not require grand gestures or recognition. Even the quietest, smallest acts could hold the greatest meaning. She felt proud of Binta and proud of herself for taking part in this meaningful work. By the time they returned home, Amma's bag was lighter, but her heart felt full. She walked through the streets with Binta, carrying the joy of the day with her. The quiet knowledge that they had made a difference in the lives of these children gave her a new perspective on life. Amma realized that kindness and generosity were more important than she had ever understood before. When they arrived home, Amma helped Binta arrange the remaining items, putting clothes neatly in drawers and setting aside coins and food for the next day. She noticed the calm, cheerful way Binta moved, the careful attention to every small detail, and the quiet pride in her maid's face. Amma smiled softly, feeling a deep sense of respect, gratitude, and love for her. That evening, Amma sat quietly in the living room, reflecting on what she had learned. She thought about the children at the orphanage, the joy in their eyes, and the quiet power of small acts of kindness. She realized that life was not about recognition or reward, but about caring for others, giving quietly, and making a difference wherever possible. Amma understood that her maid's actions had been a lesson in generosity, patience, and humility. Amma felt a desire to continue this new way of living, to be part of quiet kindness every day, and to observe life with care and attention. She realized that even small gestures, a coin, a note, a package, could create happiness and hope when given sincerely. The lesson of her maid's quiet actions had opened Amma's eyes to the meaning and power of thoughtful generosity. Over the next few days, Amma and Binta continued their visits to the orphanage. Amma learned to move with care, patience, and attention, following her maid's example. She discovered that helping others was not only about giving things, but also about giving time, attention, and kindness. The children responded with trust, joy, and happiness, reinforcing the importance of the smallest, quietest actions. Amma also noticed a change in herself. She felt lighter, happier, and more connected to the world around her. She realized that the quiet acts of kindness they performed together were not only helping the children but also transforming her own heart. Amma felt gratitude for Binta for the lessons she had learned, and for the opportunity to make a meaningful difference. By the end of the week, Amma understood fully what her maid had been showing her all along. Quiet actions, performed with sincerity and care, had the power to change lives. She realized that sometimes, the smallest gestures held the greatest importance. Trust, kindness, and patience were more valuable than any recognition or reward. Amma felt proud, grateful, and inspired to continue this way of living every day. That evening, Amma prepared a small meal for Binta and herself. They sat together quietly, sharing stories, laughter, and plans for the next visit to the orphanage. Amma's heart was full of warmth and admiration. She had learned that life was enriched by caring, giving, and noticing the small things that mattered. Binta's quiet acts of kindness had taught her that sometimes, the greatest meaning lies in the smallest unnoticed deeds. As Amma went to bed that night, she reflected on the journey of the past days. From noticing missing coins and packages to discovering the orphanage, she had learned to observe, appreciate, and participate in quiet acts of goodness. She understood that true generosity did not seek attention but quietly changed lives. Amma felt a deep sense of fulfillment and purpose, knowing that she had joined Binta in making a difference. Amma fell asleep with a peaceful heart, grateful for her maid, the children, and the lessons of quiet kindness. She understood that even small actions, given with care and sincerity, could leave a lasting impact on the world. From that day forward, Amma embraced this way of living, inspired by the quiet, meaningful deeds of her maid, Binta, and ready to continue spreading kindness wherever possible.